Alright, so I love fletching my own arrows, and the reason I do is that because I know each one is fletched the same for the most part. A lot of times when you get arrows fletched, they're going to be fletched on a fletching table, which may be 20, 24 fletching jigs in a circle on a rotating table, to where that not all of them may have been fletched, and they may have been done it, halfway or whatever when they did it in the first place. So I like fletching mine one at a time. I've been doing it for years. Nowadays, not as much as it was back when I started archery or started fletching my own arrows 20 plus years ago. It really, the precision is a lot better than it was, and everybody for the most part is shooting 2-inch blazer vanes, and of course shooting traditional. I'm shooting a 5-inch vane, shielded vane, and so I'm going to just show you. I've got one more fletch on to a vane to put on this arrow before I start on another one, and I'm going to just show you how it's done. I'm eating breakfast at the same time too, so this is what I love about it. It's an activity that a man taught me many years ago, and I think it was back in, let's see, 1993, I believe is when I learned how to do it, and he showed me. But anyway, so this is a fletching, and that's feather. Feather's good for traditional because it passes through the shelf of the bow, and I can show you that later on a later video. But these are made out of feathers and not plastic. I bought these, I think I paid like $6 or $7. They came from China, which that doesn't mean anything other than it took them a while to get here. But I've bought a lot of stuff for pennies on a dollar. I buy American, don't get me wrong. But I'm always looking for a good deal too, and for the quantity that I was getting for these, it just didn't make sense to spend all that much more money for something that probably came from China anyway, right? So anyway, 5-inch, and they're called shielded because of the shape of the fletching. A parabolic shape is more of semicircle shape. So if you know what's parabolic and what's shield, it's just a difference in shape. I don't really know that there's much flight difference. I do know that 5-inch vanes are going to give you a little bit more control than a 4-inch vane, and as you go down, of course in a faster bow, that doesn't really matter, but in a slower bow you need as much steering power as you can on the rear end of that arrow, because most of the time you're going to be shooting a larger broadhead on the end. So alright, so I'm going to take the jig, which this is what this calls. This is a Bitzenberger, again, like I've had for a long time. This knob turns that like that. Okay, so you're ready to set that next fletching. Alright, I'm going to try to set the phone down, and I'm going to show you how I do this from this way. It may take me just a minute to get everything lined up here, so be patient. Gluing, they used to, we started with, or I started with everything. What everybody else used was fletch tie. I love the smell of that stuff too. Anybody that loves hops gun oil knows exactly what I'm talking about, because Fletch type, it was a mess. It got all over your fingers, but not to get high or anything. But I just love the smell of it because it meant that hunting season right around the corner. It was, I don't know, it was just something about it. I'm weird. But anyway, and then they came out with ACE glue as the fletchings changed, as we went from 4-inch plastic to 3-inch plastic. They claimed that it was it was made specifically for those veins, and you know what? I found out real quick, again going off of smell, that glue was nothing more than super glue. And so I finally, with the invention of Dollar Tree, went to just buying $1 tube super glue, and most times you get two for $1, two tubes for $1, like this one. And so that's what I'm using right here. So I'm going to try to stand this up as best I can. I'm going to try to show you how I do this. There may be some jiggling and jostling, but hey, it's home movie, right? Alright, so maybe that'll stay there just long enough for me to do this. Oh, here it is. Alright, so on this fletching jig, I don't know if I can get that or not. Remember, this is early in the morning, so I'm just trying to give you an example. There. Okay, so on this fletching jig, on the very bottom of it, there's these little tick marks, and I never have used any more than these two tick marks. This one right here, which is be about I guess 1/4 inch, and then this 1/2 inch, whatever. Now on on compounds, I've always fletched on this 1/4 inch on that very first long tick mark, and on recurves, I'm going on to the second one. Now you may ask, why in the world does that make a difference? Well, if you're shooting fingers, you want that vein a little bit more advanced on the shaft, and you'll see that here. You see it's the distance between here and the knot. So if you put your fingers on the shaft, or whatever your shooting style is, probably not that big of a difference, but that's why, or at least that's as far as I can tell why. Okay, so enough chit chat. Let's get on with the fletching. Well, oh no, I fell, and I had this so perfectly lined up. Anyway, again, on production, we're not concerned. We believe in bringing it live to you. So, all right. Here's our fletching clamp. There's the fletching jig. Here's our fletching. And as I said, I'm fletching these for recurve or for shooting traditional. So I'm gonna put it on that little mark right there. All right, so hopefully you got to see that. Now you'll see that this is the edge of the fletch. Now, I don't know if you can see this or not, but this fletching clamp is called right wing helical. And the reason it's right wing helical is because these are right wing helical veins. And if you can see that, you see how it turns to the right? That has been a topic of discussion for many years. Folks would say, oh, if you're shooting left-handed, you need a left-handed jig and a left-handed helical. It's not been my experience that really makes any difference. I've shot them every way from straight, right, left, and cattywampus, and it didn't really make any difference to me. All right, so you got your fletching in the clamp, you got your vein in the clamp, and you got it set on that. Oh, I don't have it on that mark. See, it was a test. Now I've got it set on my right mark. One other tip is a lot of times when you, especially with fletch type, when we used it would gum up on the inside of this jig, and you'd have to come in there with a knife and scrape it out just to get it clean to where it would clamp. If you're careful and keep your line of glue off the clamp, you won't never have that trouble. And that comes with experience, or it comes with learning a lot of times by mistake. All right, so we see the edge there of the fletch. I've got it on my mark. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to move the main jig just for a minute. Again, you may not be able to see this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a fine bead or line of this glue. Now this is gel, which I like a lot better than that runny other stuff, because if you don't get it exact, and you probably not gonna be able to see this. Whoop. There you go again. Hold on a minute, I'll come back to you again. All right, now you're back. So, reason I also like the gel is if you miss a spot or whatever, you can come back and fill it in without any trouble. The thing about it is that the gel, you want it to be a line or a good line. You don't want to overuse it, but just use steady pressure when you're pushing down on the tube, and you'll find out you'll get a pretty good bead. All right, so we've got that bead of glue on there again, which you may or may not see, and you want to put it on a jig. Now this part right here is magnetized, so be ready, because it'll take it out of your hand if you're not careful. So I put the bottom, see what I'm talking about? I put the bottom of the clamp on the magnets first, and then I push it toward the body of the arrow, and then I kind of put a little bit of pressure on the clamp just to hold it in place and to give it time for that fletching to set, or for the glue to set. And then once you let it set, it'll sit there. I mean, I always like letting it wait. Now again, I'll go back to fletch tight days while have time to talk. Fletch tight, you had to, when you put it on there, rule of thumb was you leave it on there for 30 minutes. But this super glue gel, it'll set within 5, but I usually give it about 10. But I'm holding enough pressure on it, and then I think I've given it enough time that I'm going to let off on it. And then when I let off on it, you want to make sure, you want to look down under here to make sure there's no daylight, to make sure that that's holding. And I see a little bit, so I'm going to put my hand up there on the top. There's a little bit at the top. And don't worry, again, if it doesn't set just right that time, most of the time, if you can find them at an economical price like I did, you can do it. And if you have to pull them off, you can pull them off and redo the whole thing. But that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day on arrow shaft prep. I'll probably do that as another video later, but we'll let that set. I'm going to eat my breakfast, and the next time we come back, I'll show you how the fletching looks without the clamp on it. All right. Fletching 101.